I wasn't supposed to fall for the man who pulled me from a burning house. And he sure as hell wasn't supposed to come back every night like he needed saving too. The first time I met Ryan Maddox, I was unconscious and covered in smoke. I woke up 3 days later in St. Vincent's Medical Center, with a collapsed lung, cracked ribs, and a nurse who kept dodging my questions with dry sarcasm. They told me Ryan had been the one who found me in that burning duplex, kicking down the back door like he was auditioning for a movie. But that was 3 months ago. Now I see him every night. Not because I asked him to, not because he has to, but because he always finds a reason. Sometimes he brings something stupid like protein bars or a book about fire safety. Other times, he just leans in the doorway of my hospital room, arms folded across his chest, acting like he's only here to check in. But tonight, something's different. He walks in like he's carrying the weight of a secret he can't bury anymore. No jokes. No excuses. Just silence. His eyes find mine and hold. "I thought you'd be asleep," he says, voice low, almost cautious. "I was waiting," I say before I can stop myself. He looks down at his boots, shifts his weight like he's not sure whether to stay or bolt. "I almost didn't come," he adds. "Didn't think it was fair." Fair? I repeat, heart thudding. To who? He looks at me again, and this time there's no armor. Just raw, exhausted truth. To you. To me. To everything I've been trying not to feel since the night I carried you out. There it is. The crack in the dam he's been patching every night with small talk and sideways glances. I sit up straighter in the bed, despite the ache that still lives in my ribs. "Then why are you here?" I ask, quieter now. "Because I couldn't stay away. Back before the fire, my life was a mess of half-finished art projects and takeout containers. I'm a painter, was a painter, I guess, living in a part of Oakland that people like to call gritty or up-and-coming when they mean falling apart. I didn't have much. My parents stopped speaking to me after I came out at 19. My brother only texted me on holidays. The rest of the time, it was just me and the canvas and the quiet hum of loneliness I told myself I was used to. And then my apartment went up in flames. They said it was faulty wiring. One minute I was asleep, the next the world was orange and suffocating. The fire had eaten through the back hallway by the time the engines showed up. They said I was lucky. They said most people wouldn't have made it. They didn't say anything about the firefighter who ripped the front door open and ran into the inferno like a man possessed. That was Ryan. Tall. Steady. Always walking like he knows the building could collapse at any minute and he'd still be the last one out. He had a scar above his eyebrow that looked like it had a story, and eyes like flint that spark when he smiles, but he rarely does. After the hospital transferred me to rehab, he started showing up. First it was under the guise of a wellness check. Then it was because he was in the area. Then it wasn't an excuse at all. Some nights we talked about nothing: weather, football, how disgusting hospital food was. But other nights, he'd sit there quietly while I painted in my sketchbook, watching like he was trying to memorize the way the pencil moved. I don't know when I started waiting for him. I only know that when he didn't come for 2 days straight, I barely touched my food, and the nurse on call kept asking if I wanted something for the pain. I lied and said yes, even though the pain wasn't physical. Tonight, though. Tonight, Ryan's not hiding behind small talk. He walks toward my bed like a man ready to walk a tightrope in front of the whole city. He drags the chair closer and sits, resting his elbows on his knees. Then he just says it. "I couldn't stop thinking about you. Ever since that night." My heart stutters. I tried to tell myself it was just adrenaline. That I was just doing my job. But that night, pulling you out, hearing you cough, seeing your eyes open in the back of the ambulance, I knew it was more. I just didn't want to know what it meant. He pauses, searching my face like he's terrified of what he'll find. I don't make him wait. It meant something to me too, I say. He exhales hard like a man finally breathing after weeks underwater. I'm not good at this, he says. I've spent most of my life pretending I didn't feel anything too loud or too complicated. Guys like me. We're supposed to shut up, drink beer, marry someone named Lisa, and die with our secrets. You think I want someone perfect? I ask. I want someone real. He blinks like he wasn't expecting that answer. I've been burned before, I add. Not just in that fire. People see me, and they either want to fix me or run the hell away. You didn't do either. He reaches out, hesitates, then lets his fingers rest gently over mine. I don't know what this is, he says. But I want to find out. With you. The storm outside crashes louder, but inside the room, there's only the sound of my breath catching in my throat. I look down at his hand, calloused, steady, warm, and wonder how something that began in fire could lead to this quiet, life-altering calm. I've been scared, I admit. Scared that if I wanted too much, I'd lose it. That if I let you in, you'd walk away when things got too messy. I'm not walking away, he says. Not tonight. Not ever unless you tell me to. I shake my head, tears building in my throat. Don't. He nods once, firmly. Then, for the first time since I've known him, he smiles like he means it. Ryan didn't kiss me that night. He didn't have to. There's something more intimate than a kiss when two people sit in silence, fingers tangled, and let the weight of honesty settle between them. I remember the way his thumb moved along my knuckles, like he was tracing a map he'd memorized but couldn't believe was real. I remember how the storm outside passed without either of us saying much else. When the night nurse came in to check my vitals, Ryan stood and pulled the blanket higher over my legs like it was second nature. He said he'd see me tomorrow. He did. And the day after that. And the day after that. But things changed. Suddenly, the air between us was charged. Every glance lasted a beat too long. Every brush of skin an accidental handoff, a steadying grip, the time his knee touched mine when he sat too close felt like static electricity just before the storm. And I started to heal. Not just my body, though the physical therapy helped. I was learning to walk again with the aid of a cane. The doctors said I'd have nerve pain for a while, but I didn't care. I was standing. Breathing. Living. I painted again. At first small things, black and white sketches, foggy landscapes, charcoal portraits of people I'd only seen once. But then one night, after Ryan brought me Thai takeout and laughed at the mess I made with the peanut sauce, I drew him. He was laughing in the picture, head tilted back, one hand in his hair. Vulnerable. Human. Mine. I didn't tell him. Not then. But the world outside our little bubble didn't stop spinning. Rumors started. You don't see a firefighter visiting the same patient every night for 6 weeks without people noticing. Nurses talked. An orderly winked at me one morning and said, "Your boyfriend brought donuts again." Ryan didn't like that. He shut down. I saw it in the way his shoulders squared, his smile dimmed, and his visits shortened. I don't care what they say, I told him. I do, he said. Because it's not just about us. I've worked in that department for 10 years. I don't know how safe it is to be anything more than what they expect. I didn't push. I wanted to, but I didn't. Because part of me understood. Ryan was built from duty. Structure. Honor. He wasn't ashamed of me. But he was scared of what loving me might cost. And then it happened. A week later, he didn't show up. I waited. All night. No text. No call. Nothing. I told myself he was busy. Maybe there was an emergency. Maybe he was exhausted. But the second night passed the same way. And the third. By the fourth day, I was back to staring at the wall, sketchpad untouched, every heartbeat a silent question. Was it real? Or did I imagine it all? On the fifth night, he walked in just after midnight. He looked wrecked. His uniform was wrinkled, there was soot on his cheek, and his eyes were red like he'd been holding back tears or smoke or both. "Ryan," I started. But he shook his head and locked the door behind him. "They found out," he said simply. My stomach dropped. "Someone saw me leave here one night and ran it up the ladder. I got called in. They said I was violating protocol, getting too personal with a civilian case. They implied I was compromised." I swallowed. "What does that mean?" He exhaled like he'd been punched. "It means I've been pulled from duty for now. It means if I fight it, I might lose everything. My pension. My job. My team." My heart twisted. "Because you care about someone? Because that someone is a man." The silence that followed was like a second fire, hot, all-consuming, and stealing oxygen from the room. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "Don't be," he said. "Because I realized something." He walked over, sat on the edge of my bed, and took my hand like he had that first night. "I spent years building a life people could respect. Following rules. Saving strangers. Hiding who I was. But that night when I carried you out of that building, I wasn't just saving your life. You were saving mine too. Because I saw you lying there, so close to gone, and I thought, if this is it, if everything ends tonight, what did I live for?" His voice cracked. "I didn't live for me. I never have." I couldn't breathe. My hand squeezed his. "I don't want to hide anymore," he said. "Not from the department. Not from myself. And not from you." This time, when he leaned in, I didn't hesitate. The kiss wasn't perfect, our mouths missed at first, my neck tensed from the injury, and he was trembling slightly. But it was real. God, it was real. It was 6 weeks of longing. 3 months of recovery. Years of silence, shattered in a single moment of truth. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. The fallout came fast. The department called it an internal personnel matter. Ryan was suspended indefinitely. His union rep said they'd look into it, but we both knew what that meant. There were whispers about fraternization, about public perception, about respectability. But there were also other voices. A rookie firefighter named Malik sent Ryan a text, "Took guts, man. Proud of you." A female paramedic he trained with brought me flowers at the rehab center. "I knew he wasn't visiting for your blood pressure," she said with a wink. And then, somehow, word got out to the press. It wasn't a tabloid scandal, just a quiet column in a local paper titled, "Hero Suspended for Love," that went unexpectedly viral. Suddenly, people were tweeting about us. Commenting. Debating. A few called it inappropriate. But most? They called it brave. A non-profit for LGBTQ+ first responders reached out and offered support. A petition circulated demanding Ryan's reinstatement. Old patients he'd rescued over the years posted pictures and thank you notes with the hashtag #LetRyanServe. He didn't want to read any of it. But I did. Because for the first time in a long time, I believed in something bigger than myself. We weren't just a story. We were a mirror for every closeted EMT, every scared teenager, every man who thought love meant loss. 1 week after the article dropped, Ryan came to my final physical therapy session. I was walking without a cane for the first time. He stood in the doorway like always, but this time his arms were open. "I told them I wouldn't resign," he said when we were alone. "Told them they could fire me if they wanted. But I wasn't going to apologize for loving someone." I raised an eyebrow. And he smiled. The union blinked. I'm back on shift next month. New station, new chief. Better policies. They say it's about optics, but I don't care why. I'm not hiding anymore. I stepped forward without support and wrapped my arms around him. And for the first time since the fire, I felt whole. Summer crept into the city like a slow exhale, warm, humming, and full of possibility. By the time the trees on the rehab center's lawn turned a deeper shade of green, I had been discharged. My apartment had been completely gutted by the fire, so I moved into a small sublet while I waited on the insurance payout. It was nothing fancy, a one-bedroom walk-up with creaky floors and old plumbing, but the light was good and the silence was mine. Ryan helped me move in. It was awkward at first. He stood in the doorway with a borrowed toolbox, offering to fix the blinds. I offered him lemonade in a chipped mug. We tiptoed around each other like the walls were thinner than they were, like our new reality needed space to settle. But then he stayed the night. Not out of obligation. Not because he needed to check on me. But because he wanted to be there when I woke up. We slept back to back, fully clothed, not touching, just breathing the same midnight air. The next morning, he kissed the scar on my shoulder without asking. That's when I knew. This wasn't a phase. Or a trauma bond. Or some fleeting spark of rebellion against a system that tried to choke the softness out of both of us. This was real. Still, loving Ryan in public was complicated. People stared when we held hands on the sidewalk. A man muttered something under his breath when Ryan pressed a quick kiss to my temple outside a grocery store. A woman clutched her child closer when we walked past. It was worse for him. Every shift he worked came with side eyes. Not always from the public, often from other firefighters. Some of the old school guys refused to partner with him. Others cracked jokes, cruel in their vagueness. Better not drop the hose, Maddox. Never know who's watching. Ryan never responded. He just clenched his jaw, did his job better than anyone else, and came home to me smelling like smoke and silence. Until one night, he broke. He came in late past 2 a.m., shoulders hunched, neck damp with sweat. I was up painting, the living room dimly lit and covered in unfinished canvases. He didn't speak, just dropped his gear bag and sank onto the couch like he'd been hit by a car. I turned off the music. Bad call. He stared at the floor. No. Just people. I sat beside him, not touching, not prying. Do you ever wish it was easier? He asked finally. What? Loving you? He let out a sad laugh. No. Being someone else. Being someone who didn't have to explain everything, who didn't have to prove every day that who he is doesn't make him less of a man. I took a breath. All the time. We sat like that for a long moment. Then I stood, walked to my desk, and picked up one of the finished paintings I hadn't shown him yet. It was of him. Not in his uniform. Not in hero mode. Just Ryan. Bare-chested. Back turned. Looking out a window as morning light spilled across his skin. Vulnerable. Real. I handed it to him without a word. He stared at it, throat working like he was trying to swallow something too big. You make me look, he started. Like yourself, I finished. He looked up. There were tears in his eyes, but he didn't blink them away. You make me want to stay. We started building a rhythm. He worked 4 shifts on, 3 off. I painted. Sometimes for commissions, sometimes for myself. The city began to take notice of my work again. A gallery in the Mission District reached out about a show. I said no at first. I'm not ready, I told Ryan. He looked at me like I'd just said the moon was fake. You've been ready since the day you picked up that pencil again. So I said yes. The show was called after the fire. It featured 12 large-scale pieces, half portraits, half abstract emotion rendered in shades of smoke, blood, and sunrise. The final piece was called Rescue. It was the one of Ryan. I didn't label it. I didn't have to. People came. Critics wrote things. Someone from a New York gallery offered to fly me out. But none of that compared to the moment I saw Ryan standing at the back of the gallery in his off-duty clothes, arms crossed, blinking fast like he didn't trust his own eyes. After the show ended, he pulled me into an alley behind the building and kissed me like he'd just walked out of that fire again. That fall, my parents reached out. A cousin had seen the article online and told them I was living in sin with a firefighter. I thought it was a joke. But the email from my mother wasn't. It was short. Formal. Measured. We'd like to talk. If you're willing. I showed it to Ryan. You don't have to do anything, he said carefully. Not for them. I know, I said. But I think I want to. He offered to come with me. I said no. I took a bus back to the small Oregon town I'd run from 10 years ago. Sat across from my parents in their sterile living room while they fumbled through apologies shaped like conditionals. We don't agree with it, my father said. But we love you, my mother added. I nodded. That's your line to carry, not mine. My brother showed up halfway through dinner. He was wearing a pride pin on his backpack. You look good, he said. Thanks. He waited. Can I meet him sometime? I smiled. Yeah. I think you'd like him. That night, I stayed in a motel and dreamed of fire. But it wasn't the burning kind. It was warmth. Movement. Light. I took the early bus home. When I walked in, Ryan was in the kitchen, shirtless, flipping pancakes like he'd done it forever. He turned, saw me, and grinned. You came back. Always. The winter was kind to us. We spent Christmas with Ryan's sister and her kids, who immediately demanded I help them paint their school projects. One of them, a boy with 2 big glasses, whispered to me, "Uncle Ree smiles more when you're around." I almost cried. New Year's Eve, we stood on the roof of our building and watched fireworks light up the sky. Make a wish, he said. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, he was holding out a small silver key. To the house I just put an offer on, he said. If you want to move in. With me. I took the key. We moved that spring. It was a modest craftsman on the edge of town, with a garden out back and creaky stairs that sang at night. The garage became my studio. Ryan built shelves for my brushes. I hung the rescue painting in the hallway, next to a picture of us from the gallery night. We lived. We loved. But more than anything we stayed. There's a moment every morning, just before the sun hits the windows, when the house is still. The heater ticks. The dog we adopted from the shelter, her name's Maple, snores lightly at the foot of the bed. And Ryan, always an early riser, sometimes pauses just long enough to lie beside me before his shift. Those are the moments I never thought I'd get. Because for so long, I believed that love for people like me came in shadows, brief, hidden, and doomed to end with someone walking away. But Ryan stayed. Even when it cost him. Even when it hurt. Even when the world muttered things behind our backs or stared too long or asked too many questions with too few words. He stayed. And that changed everything. The first time we walked into a fire department fundraiser as a couple, people stared. We both felt it hush, the stiff smiles, the handshake that lingered too long without warmth. But Ryan didn't flinch. He kept my hand in his, greeted his colleagues, nodded at the captain like they'd always known this version of him. Some did. Others were learning. One man, a veteran named Rourke, approached us near the buffet table. He was older, built like a stone wall, with a voice like gravel. "You're the guy from the article," he said to me. Ryan stepped forward, protective. "Is there a problem?" Rourke shook his head slowly. "No. My grandson came out last year. Thought he'd get kicked off the basketball team. Didn't. You helped. Both of you." He extended a hand. We shook it. Ryan's fingers found mine again when we walked away, not in fear but pride. I was offered a solo show in New York that summer. It was the kind of opportunity one used to dream about when I was younger, broke, angry, and still aching from a family that had mistaken silence for salvation. Ryan encouraged me. Booked our flights. Took a week off to go with me. The gallery was packed. Critics called my work brutally tender and achingly necessary. One described my brushstrokes as a visual language of survival. But what stayed with me most wasn't the reviews. It was Ryan standing in the middle of a room full of strangers, staring at a painting I'd done of the two of us sitting on the porch of our new house, coffee mugs in hand, no shoes, no fear. He cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a single tear, slipping down his cheek, as he whispered, "I never thought I'd see myself in a painting. Not like this." The night we got engaged wasn't elaborate. No skywriting. No orchestras. Just our backyard, string lights, a half-finished pizza, and a quiet moment where he reached into his pocket, pulled out a ring, and said, "It's never been anyone but you." I didn't even answer. I just kissed him. We told friends. Family. Even the department. Some cheered. Some shrugged. A few disappeared. But we didn't. We planned the wedding ourselves. It wasn't big, just 40 people, a lakefront lodge, wildflowers everywhere. My brother walked me down the aisle. Ryan's sister officiated. Maple barked during the vows, and everyone laughed. We said, "I do," beneath the sky we'd watched collapse in fire and rise in hope. And when we danced our first dance, there was no music louder than the sound of our hearts finally at peace. Years passed. I had my first full retrospective in San Francisco. Ryan was promoted to lieutenant. We adopted another dog. I taught art classes to queer teens at the local youth center. He started mentoring new recruits who needed more than just fire drills. They needed role models who weren't afraid to love. Sometimes we fought. Sometimes we cried. Sometimes we lost people who couldn't grow with us. But always, we stayed. Through every storm. Every stare. Every scar. One evening, after a long day of teaching, I came home to find Ryan in the garage, organizing tools and humming off-key to an old Springsteen song. He looked up, grinned, and said, "I signed us up for a CPR class next week. Couples discount." I laughed. "You're incapable of not being a hero." He kissed me. "You made it easy." Later that night, we lay side by side in bed, the windows open, the night warm. "Do you ever think about that night?" I asked. "The fire?" "Every time I look at you," he said. I turned to face him. "You saved me." "No," he whispered, brushing a thumb across my cheek. "We saved each other." I used to think healing was a destination. Something you arrived at once the pain ended. But I was wrong. Healing is a rhythm. A choice. A love you keep choosing, even when the world gives you reasons not to. And love, real love, isn't perfect. It's scared. It's bold. It's messy and brave and quiet and loud all at once. It's waking up every morning beside the person who sees your scars and stays anyway. It's walking through fire, not just once, but every day, and holding hands as you do. The end. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.